Well, hi, everyone. My name's Jennifer Rice. I'm volunteering as your session moderator. Thanks for joining this Zoom meeting session, which is titled Going Virtual, Moving Your Programming Online. We invite you to turn on your camera if you're comfortable and able to do so with video during the Q&A and conversations. To minimize background noise, we ask that everyone stay on mute while not talking. If you would like to ask a question, please use the raise hand feature inside the participation or the participants tab. You're also invited to submit your questions via chat in the Zoom screen, and we'll address those throughout the session. If you're having any tech or connectivity issues with the event software, we suggest utilizing the Chrome browser. It may also be helpful to follow the direct Zoom meeting invite, which is in the session description. Now I'm pleased to turn the session over to Beth Flowers.
So hi, everybody. I hope folks got a chance to take a moment to breathe and process the things that have already inspired us yet today. Today, I'm going to talk with you about moving programming online. And I'm gonna actually stop sharing my screen for a second so I can see everybody, and would love to have you come on screen really quickly, just so that we can get a sense of who all is in the room, and for me to find out how many of you are thinking about doing programming that is a workshop. If you're thinking about doing a workshop, raise your hand. Okay, one person workshop. How about performance? Okay, a few performance folks. How about how about a gallery opening? Anybody thinking about gallery openings? Awesome. What other ideas are you all thinking about doing online? If you can start that conversation in the chat, that would be awesome. But what I'm going to do for us today, I'm going to go ahead and put my screen back up and share a slideshow so that we can talk about what it's like to do this really scary thing, frankly, which is start to do programming online or figure out what other ways we can do the work that we're normally doing. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a quick overview. We're doing that right now. And then what I'm going to talk about is making space for reflection. This COVID moment has changed a lot of things for most of us. And one thing that is so tempting is just to keep doing what we've been doing the whole time and not think about whether it's the right thing to do. So we're going to talk about that first. Then I'm going to dig into some tips for designing and planning for going online, and then do some tips for actually delivering online. And we'll finish up with some best practice examples from across actually, and hopefully this is interesting for some of you, across rural Appalachia, because there are so many innovative things happening in places where you wouldn't imagine or think of as wonderful things that are happening right now. So that's our plan. And I'm going to start just with this quick moment, which is to say, whoo, holy smokes, y'all. This is one challenging freaking time. And for most of us that have been working either as arts administrators or as artists, it is particularly challenging because our worlds have been upended. We don't know how to do what we're doing. And it's also really frightening to imagine how we start all the way over with our programming. So when we think about how we're feeling, the next hopefully important thing that you think about is, how are our audience thinking? How are they feeling? So this is such an important moment that I encourage all of you to really dig in to all of your empathy for all of the experiences that people are having right now, and to think about that before you start to dig into, oh, let's just put all of our programming online. I'm sure that will solve everything. It probably won't. If things were broken before COVID started, before we had a heightened awareness and interest in action related to social justice and racial justice issues, these still are going to be our issues that we have to struggle with and deal with. So it means that we have to go back and look at our programming and look at how we've been making our work as artists, and think about what that connection is to the people that we're trying to communicate with, the people we're trying to serve, and really re-emphasize this moment and think about what is important. Is our mission still important, and are we actually meeting our mission? So the AIR Institute has been around for a number of years, and actually we were, we were started from out west, and we were designed to really dig into how can we help artists make more money. And one of the things that we were supposed to be doing was serving the rural Intermountain West. And we imagined that one of the things that we could do if we were going to serve a large region of rural America was that the internet could be a way that we could provide programming. And so when we originally started working on our concepts of programming, we actually tried to design programming online, and found, holy smokes, it's really hard. And in fact, a lot of the work that we were trying to do didn't translate very well to being online. And so we actually ended up designing programming that was much more focused on in-person experiences. And so here, all of a sudden, in February and March, it started to, occur to me, oh my goodness, there's this thing coming on. I wonder if we're going to have to be virtual and go back to this original place that we came from, of imagining, how do we do our curriculum? How can we serve our audience in the place that we started and abandoned? So I got really scared, frankly, because I knew that there were limitations to doing online programming. And I was really worried that some of the deep, heavy work that we do wasn't going to translate online at all. So of course, you had to do what we all should be doing right now, which is digging into our creative side and digging into design thinking. And that means starting with, who are we trying to serve? How can we best reach them? And really digging into what do people need right now? Instead of just sort of, willy-nilly running and saying, okay, let's just put everything on Zoom and imagine that it'll all be perfect. So the design thinking process starts with empathy. It starts with who is your audience and what do they need? What do human beings need? Design thinking is based on human-centered, empathetic design processes. So always starting with the people who we're trying to serve. Then defining, what's the problem? Well, the problem is, oh my gosh, all of a sudden we can't gather, we can't be together, we can't express our art, we don't know how to play music, we can't sing together, we don't know how to go to galleries. What is that defining piece that we're trying to figure out? Then the next phase is ideation. So that's just a fancy word for saying, how do we brainstorm and come up with wonderful ideas about how we solve that problem? But the design thinking process doesn't just end with the ideation. Immediately and as fast as possible, you have to move into prototyping. So doing the fastest, cheapest, least risky opportunity for testing your idea as you possibly can. And so that's what we did. We started jumping into, how can we put a workshop online? What does that look like? We started to do small versions of that to test and refine the ideas. And then we had to go back to our audience and say, okay, is this working? Making sure that we have surveys, all of those pieces. So before you get started, this is really the key, is to start with a really true design process before you imagine moving any programming online. And that includes some parts of the definition of your problem. So you've got to do research. There's actually really wonderful things happening out in the world all over the place. The beautiful Google wonderment that you can find just by Googling about things that are similar to what you're trying to do, and you will find artists and organizations that are trying new things. Don't forget to ask your network. This is a great opportunity for us all to be together. Type things into that lobby area where we've got that feed going along. Type in questions and ideas. Ask people questions to see what they're doing as well. Now, something else that I started to dig into when we started moving our programming online was which of these programs that were out there could I use that would work the best? And I will assure you that having tried multiple platforms, that Zoom is clearly the most stable platform that there is. There are other platforms that have different bells and whistles, no question about it, but it's really stable and it has so many tools that they don't market. They don't tell you what is under the hood of the Zoom engine. And so part of what we're going to go into a little bit later is what is there, because there's all sorts of cool stuff that you can do to make a wonderful experience for your participants that are not going to ever replace the live experience, but they certainly can bring the level of experience up to a much higher bar. The other thing that was not natural to me, but that I encourage you to, if it means asking your children or young people who you know, or your nerdy next door neighbor, check out video games. There are all of these wonderful creative ideas out there. There are literally millions of people who are online every day communicating happily. So it can't just be them who are able to use these systems. And that's hard for us to accept, because I don't know how y'all are feeling, but I definitely struggle to not be able to be with people in the same way that I used to. And I miss it. And it's hard when I have to feel like I'm compromising by being online. But there's a lot to learn from the world of gamers. So the other thing that I think is really helpful when thinking about what is my programming going to be online is to start with essentially what the rubrics like Artists Thrive are encouraging us to do. What does success look like? What does this mean for you to succeed? Does it mean that you have as many people attending your concert as normally would? Is that really the success? Is success the same as it used to be when you were doing this programming before? Likely it's changing. And something that I'd really encourage you to think about right now is that a big part of success for us is helping other people feel comfortable online. Because the truth is, y'all, this is not going away. And even with a vaccine coming in theory closer and closer every day, the chances are that most of us are going to be dealing with some sort of online and very different in-person interactions for at least another year from now. I know people who are not planning programming until 2022. So you've got to take that into account and realize that if we don't embrace this new online reality, we're going to be missing the boat and our mission will get compromised if we aren't able to help people get more comfortable being online. So for us, for AIR, one thing that we're now doing is we're training as part of all of our programs people to use online tools better. It takes up more of our programming than we ever could have imagined. And you can't believe the number of aha moments that we have with people who are literally using Zoom every day, but didn't realize that they could be using it in a different way. So think about what success means for you. One thing that we use in AIR, and it's part of what we teach about, is just to use a really simple canvas to think about your project. Start with your goals. Think about what it seems to be. What's the description of what you're trying to find? What does success look like? Who's your audience? Who are the partners that you can get involved in this online endeavor? How are you going to market it? What is your marketing goal going to be? And how are you going to make it happen? Who is going to staff the online program? What other staff do you need to pull together? What kind of volunteers do you need? Is it going to cost money? And what does that look like? And what is your timeline? So just trying to get some of those basics down onto paper or virtually onto some sort of digital paper with your team is really going to help you if you start and take this really seriously. It isn't just like, oh, let's just jump online and do what we did before and imagine that it'll be the same. It just doesn't work that way. So that means that you also have to get really comfortable with making a mess. That is hard for any of you that are control freaks like me. I am definitely a recovering perfectionist. My mom taught me so well, but this is not the time for perfection. This is the time for us to take a risk and to go back to that design thinking model that says, let's try something, test, get feedback, find out what's working and what's not, so we can fix it before we design and implement a whole program that doesn't go anywhere. Some of the big tech companies talk about ship it. You know, you've got to get it out the door, even though it's not perfect. And right now, because of the way that time is so crazy, being able to let go of that perfectionism that we normally would want to have about our work is something we have to let go of. So it's a good time to be practicing that Zen principle of non-attachment. We've got to get more comfortable with things that are going to change drastically, because in 2 days, what we thought worked no longer works, because the world has changed again so fast. And that's another piece of this being online is you have to be prepared to cancel. So it's another reason why you don't want to overinvest your time or your financial resources, because the chance that you may end up having to change your plans fairly drastically because a spike happens in a community that you were trying to serve, in a neighborhood where you were ready to do a concert. And even though you're online, the problem is that we're human. And when spikes happen, it makes our anxiety and our fear levels go way up. And we start to get afraid to do anything. And so all of a sudden, it doesn't matter whether you're offering something in person or online, we aren't able to handle it emotionally. And so your audience goes down and it just becomes more complicated. So this is a really good lesson in being an artist and getting good at being okay with things not working and suddenly having to have them change at the last minute. And it ain't comfortable, that's for sure. So here are some delivery tips as you're starting to think about going online. Everything takes twice as long as you imagine it will. So if normally it took you 2 hours to prep for a workshop, it's going to take you 4 hours to prep for a workshop. If you're getting ready to do, if you're going to hang a show in a gallery, but you want to do an online opening, it's going to take way longer to manage an online opening than to go buy the wine and the cheese and crackers an hour before the gallery show. So there's just more time that you have to think about. The other thing is that our attention spans are shorter than they used to be. It's harder for us to focus because our anxiety levels are higher. And so it's important that you not design programs that are days long. Notice that Artist Thrive is only half a day. And because we're serving a national audience, we had to figure out what time was going to work so that the West Coast and the East Coast could do things at the same time when we're awake. So figuring out those kinds of details, even locally, are important. The other thing that I think you may be gathering from my words so far is that having empathy is so important, and having the ability to read people's experiences when you're online is so much harder. So even if you're an empath and you have a high emotional intelligence quotient, you have a high EQ, everything that we're doing online is harder to read. We're little blocks and squares of faces, and sometimes we don't have any faces because the internet connection isn't good, or because I'm eating lunch and I don't want you to see me eating. How do I know whether you're paying attention? All of that is hard. So it's no wonder that we're scared to do this stuff, because it is a new muscle that we're having to flex, and it is very difficult. But it's not at all impossible, as many of you could see. Tanya this morning was able to rev us all up and get us excited, even though it was an online experience. For some of you who have been going to the networking events, I know Gregory and I have had an awesome time in the bar online, where we've just had a chance to meet new people and have a casual conversation. And yes, it's online, but it works. But it takes time to practice that. The other thing to think about is that you may have to change your plans, not just because of COVID, but also because of current events. One of the first programs that we moved online is a program that we have called Evolve. That's a 6-month-long program for artists and creative entrepreneurs to dig into their business plans and prototype their ventures. And we moved it online in May. And it's a 6-month program. Well, after our first class, George Floyd was murdered. And our second class, we chose not to have class. Instead, we spent an hour together processing what was happening in the world, because we acknowledged that it was so much to understand and to think about, that it was more important that we have that moment as a cohort together to talk about what was happening than it was to dig into what our budget was for our venture. And it made all of the participants bond in a new and different way. It was a chance for folks to talk about not just their emotional processing of what was going on, but to also move into action and imagine how their projects and their ventures could be more impactful and have a social justice arm or a new bent that could mean something different from what they had imagined when we started the process together. So leaning into that is so important. And most of the meetings that we're going to online don't take that into account. We're just pretending like business as usual, and we're just having the same old meeting. Well, life is not the same. So for you to take that moment and give people the space to process, you will gain fans, you will get trusted folks who will help you with your programming, who will grow your audience. Because for you as a musician, as a visual artist, to share this moment of processing this incredibly difficult time that we're all experiencing is invaluable. So the other really important things are all about the tech side. So normally I could do a workshop on my own, but I have Jennifer here helping out. Matthew's in here too. We've got a closed caption person, making sure that we're reaching people. And it's so important because it's harder to read these experiences. So knowing that you can't do this alone, you're going to need to have multiple people doing whatever it is that you plan online. Also, there's the internet. It's not stable. Most of the work that I do is in rural America and in disadvantaged communities who do not have consistent internet access. So being prepared for your class to suddenly fall apart because half the people, there's a thunderstorm and the internet goes out, those are just things you have to start to plan for. But what helps with all of that is staying in touch with your audience. After everything we do, we have a survey. And it's a part of how we end every program, is to make sure that our audience, our participants, all have an opportunity to share what worked so that we can change the next one we do. And we have not done anything the same since May. So every class that we've done online has gotten better because we've learned more from every participant who's shared what was working and what wasn't. And the other final thing that actually Tanya was a good coach for this as well is practice, practice, practice. This gets so much easier, I promise you, the more that you do it. So while it feels daunting, and it's never going to feel the same as life has been before, but it does get much easier and it gets fun. So I want to do, I'm going to pull us out of this screen share for a moment, because I want to make sure that those of you who are here actually look at your Zoom controls with me in a meaningful way, because there are some really cool things that you need to know that you can do. So, all right. Hi, y'all. It's easier for me to see you when I take that fancy slideshow down. But here's what I wanted to check in with you about. All right, how many of you have been using Zoom regularly? All right, so many of you, I don't know about you. Yes, okay. Most of you are using it regularly. Do all of you know, you all know how to mute yourselves? I can tell that, but if you look at your controls, do you see that little arrow next to mute? If you click on that, you have way more interesting things than you used to. And if you have not gone to Zoom, this is my number 1 tip for today, is to go do the Zoom updates. If you haven't done them, they are huge. There are so many new things that, and they don't tell you when they're doing an update, so you've just got to go back. Now, if you don't know how to do an update, it's really easy. If you're using the Zoom client app, which means that you have some sort of app that you pull up that brings up a white box that has a home screen that says back to meeting, join, schedule, and share screen. If you use that, in the top right of that white little box, you should see either your picture, if you've got your picture in, or an icon that is blank that has your name on it. Click on that and you will see, if you scroll down, you have settings, you have, are you available, away, do not disturb, your profile is there, and you can see check for updates. If you don't use that, which is totally fine, you'll just want to go to Zoom US and log in. And again, at the top right-hand side of your screen, you will find a little icon of a person that is you. Click on it and you'll see that you're able to find your update portion there. Now, don't do it right now because it will throw you out of Zoom right now. I have done this, so just be forewarned. The good news is the updates are quick and painless, and they are immediate. But again, Zoom doesn't tell you that they're doing them, so how would you know? But I'm telling you, it's awesome what you get. So who has done a Zoom update recently? Does anyone know? Okay, a few of you do. So what's super cool is in your mute areas and also in your stop and start video areas, you have new options. You can choose your virtual background. Some of you are using that. Hong Yi is the winner of the Death Star. We love you. But also right below that, if you've done an update, you can choose video filters. And all of a sudden, we are able to add masks. Look. You are able to put borders around your screen. These are fun, wonderful little things that, frankly, given the amount of time that we spend online, are a useful, wonderful, helpful little piece for you to keep people engaged, not in the middle of a concert. But it's a good way to realize that they're trying to have some fun with it. The other thing I want to point out, most of us have now, because of our work today and over the last couple of days, you've gotten comfortable with the participant tab. You know that there are things there that can do, you can do a lot of things in that participant tab. Same with chat. Reactions, there are more reactions. But share screen is something I want to make sure you know about, some new features. Share screen now has some advanced shares. One of them is that you can play your music or computer sound only. So if I were to click that right now, I could play background music that would allow us to talk on top of the music, which is great to think about for doing events. And there's another new beta version of using slides as a virtual background. And what that does when you use it is it makes it possible for your face to be right on top of the slide. So instead of having a speaker and then the slide, your speaker is on top of the slide. So it's nice for the audience. You can't play videos on it, but it's a really helpful piece. Heather mentioned this earlier today. Also with this update, some really important things that are good changes is that you can actually make someone spotlighted. So right now I'm gonna spotlight Jennifer for everyone. All of a sudden Jennifer's really big and she's uncomfortable. So I'm gonna stop it right away. But what's cool is you can do that and you can spotlight up to 9 people. So if you're doing a concert or if you're having a gallery talk, you can have those people permanently spotlighted. You'll have to put folks back into the gallery view when you do that in order to get it back to normal. But it's really helpful for you as an event planner to be able to do that. Also, when you're the host, you are able to set up the screen. I can move boxes around and that's pretty cool. So I can actually set up the screen in a permanent way and then make all of the participants, as long as they've done their updates, see the same screen. So you can imagine if you're doing a workshop or any sort of interactive thing, then you know who is going to be in what spot. They won't be moving around because of who's talking. So it's nice. It allows you to do a round of interaction and know what's happening. And it looks like Kate may have a question.
Yeah, I wanted to, there's a question about sharing videos, and I didn't know if you want to answer that now or wait till the end, but can share advice on sharing videos so they're not glitchy beyond optimizing the videos and blah, blah.
So here's my advice. Totally freaking do it, at least from a workshop perspective. 2 things. One, yes, optimize for full screen sharing if you want. The most important thing under your share screen is if you click on share computer sound, it's on the basic tab, it's on the advanced tab, but it's on the left-hand side at the bottom. It says share computer sound. You want to make sure you click that, because that will allow the video to play even when you're talking. So you can mute yourself. It's not just going to play the video as it comes out of your machine. It'll play it from within your machine. So that helps a ton. The other thing I would recommend is if you do not have a stable internet situation for yourself as the host, you need to have your videos on your computer. You need to play them from within your system so that you're not waiting for the internet and potentially spinning, so that you don't have it be glitchy. So have your content original to your machine so that you can play it better and you aren't having to pull it from the internet when you're playing. I know Emily Prince, is she still? Yes, she is still in here, I think. Yes, she is. Emily is actually in one of our programs, and I think can speak to the truth that watching a video online in a cohort is actually really good, because we wouldn't watch it if we weren't together doing it. So I highly recommend, if you're doing a workshop, that yes, show a video. You can chat to talk about it while it's happening. You don't have to be on screen, but you're doing a collective thing together. Go ahead, Emily.
So, and as a person who has really terrible Appalachian internet, my download speed is 0.9, so I don't often get to 1. If the video gets glitchy, it then speeds me up to catch up to everyone, which is annoying, but I stay on the same timeline, if that's helpful.
And there are so many questions that I'm that I'm behind on, but I'm going to keep pushing through this just for a minute with y'all. There's one other thing. How many of you are using breakout rooms regularly? A few of you are. If you are, awesome, do more. So if you aren't, Here's the thing, breakout rooms are so powerful because you know how this is uncomfortable because there's too many of us? The most meaningful experiences are with 6 to 8 people. So the more you can get people into small groups, the better experience you will have. You can't adapt for for group singing. It just doesn't work. I'm sorry, Jim. It's the saddest thing. But and I have had some fascinating, Hung Yi, I think, no, maybe it was Mitzi Sinnott had a horrible birthday moment, a horrible and beautiful birthday moment where we all tried to sing for her and it was disaster.
Great. That was just Carnegie Hall level. What are you talking about? It was great.
Yeah, you can get everyone to mute, but it's hard because then it's very confusing. Yeah. But back to the breakout rooms for just a second, because I wanted to give you some tips about using them better than one can imagine, which is that breakout rooms work really well. When you make other people co-hosts, they can move from one room to another. It's a magic trick. It's very important. So right now, if I made all of you all co-hosts and we broke into breakout rooms, we could travel back and forth between the breakout rooms. This is really cool. And in the new Zoom update, they've just allowed you to let anyone move. It's a checkbox now that when you set up your breakout rooms, you can let anyone move. And the reason I bring that up is because the Tamarack Foundation in West Virginia is doing an online gallery opening, and they have rooms set up for each of the artists where you'll be able to travel from one room to the next, see the art, the artist will be there. There's a person from the board who will be in with the artists because these are emerging artists, helping them do networking because they've never done networking before. They'll have video, they'll have background music in their room. I mean, it's super cool. And in their lobby, they have a video set up of going to the gallery. So when you arrive, you see the shared screen that is the video of you walking into the gallery. You have that experience. They have a secret room set up. It's not a secret room. It's just another room that is the place to go if you're lost, so that you can always get sort of a tutorial on how to go from breakout rooms, all of that sort of thing. So they're really helpful all along the way. I'm tempted to go back and show you my pictures, but I'm also tempted just to go straight into Q&A. What's the vote? I want to give some time to Emily Prince because I want to give you some best practice examples of what is working. Emily works for Stewart's Opera House in Nelsonville, Ohio. And some of you may have heard of the Nelsonville Music Festival. It's an amazing, amazing music festival. And of course, it had to be canceled this year. But they did an incredible job of putting an online music festival on. And Emily, I'm going to let you just start talking about what it took to make that happen. And then I might pull up pictures so that I can put them up while you're talking.
Thanks, Beth, and hi, everyone. I've also been cramming my maw with French fries. So you can't smell it, but it's all around us. Like Beth said, I work for Stewart's Opera House and reproduce the Nelsonville Music Festival, which would have been, or is in fact in its 16th year this year. Started as a one-day thing on our public square. Oh, look, hi, there it is. Okay, yeah, so there's our website, and that is a giant octopus. We have a balloon artist who comes and does a surprise balloon installation, and if I'm not mistaken, that was for the Decemberists, or it could have been the Flaming Lips. I'm usually working. I don't know. People have fun there. I don't know what they do. So we knew fairly early on that the festival would have to be canceled. Ohio closed in about, I think, March 12th. And our festival is the first weekend in June. And y'all, if you do events, know that Right. So we work with a number of partners already with the festival, and it's like Beth talks about doing, you know, design thinking. Who are we serving? What's the mission? What are our goals? We started, well, I mean, we started in despair, frankly, and sadness. Also, the festival is our biggest fundraiser. So the festival brings in, what we net is about 150,000 a year that goes towards arts education and programming here on our square. So that's a pretty significant loss already. One of our partners, the Ohio University School of Media Studies, and Josh Antonuccio, who is the head of that program, came to Tim Peacock, our artistic director, and said, what if we do a virtual festival? The School of Media Arts students all lost their internships. So, you know, we're all rippling, right? So these students all go to internships throughout the year. And they used their internship opportunity was recording these artists. So some of the artists we recorded and some sent in videos. So of this right now, we recorded Camp and Hot Tuna and Mandolin Orange, Tank and the Bangas, and Todd Snyder sent us in videos. And the students through Ohio University Media Studies and WOUB Public Media, which is our PBS affiliate, edited, put it all together. We did, and then we did all the same things we would have done for the festival, well, except for some infrastructure things, but there was tech infrastructure we all had to learn really quickly in a pandemic, and keeping everybody 6 feet apart and masked, and, you know, and we got together all the volunteer coordinators and people who worked through the festival who did introductions for the bands, and we did a lot of our introductions on the festival site. And we launched it. We did it. It was free, but we ran it kind of like a telethon. So we released it on YouTube, and it streamed through our Facebook and on our website. And we managed all the chats. So the festival happened live. It was all done, and we released it all live at the same time, and engaged with all of our constituents and people in the chat. So here are some people who sent us pictures. This is at the Stones house. And so some friends, and we're all friends, it's family. It's a mid-sized festival. We get about 8,000 a year, and we blew that out of the water this year as far as views go. And we had views from all over the world. They're watching Caitlin Krause, who was filmed at Ohio University, Ethelred Etheridge, an artist who had done a mural on that wall. Is that picture. It was being together apart, you know. I can't say it's okay they're masked, they're all a family. So I don't want anybody to feel weird about that. Yeah, I mean, it was terrifying. It was terrifying. Up to the minute, like we were at like 7:45, like who has the hot spot? You know, the whole festival could have crumbled, and our Appalachian internet, I mentioned before, is like really terrible. I feel like that's in the news a little bit, but those parachute journalists only want to talk about trailers. You know, but we did it, and it was great, and we made a little money. So
it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it. And it's fascinating that everyone is, I mean, we're all in the same boat. We're all trying to figure it out. And I think one of the things that we forget about sometimes as artists and as arts administrators is that this is part of our role, is to help people adapt. And I feel so strongly that part of what we have to do is model good behavior and model solid risk taking, solid innovation, helping people understand that it's okay to fail as we do this, because it's not a failure. It's just a step in the evolution of how we get this done right. There's some other folks on the call. Robert Donnan is with, I guess we're not on a call, in our summit experience. We're in a room together, y'all. We're in a session. Thank goodness some of you have windows. But Robert and I have been doing some online work in Kentucky, and you know, we had 30 people online in Pikeville, Kentucky a week and a half ago doing a workshop about how to make downtown Pikeville a better place. And we were training people on how to use Zoom. You know, we got them into breakout rooms. They were using reactions, and they were sharing what projects they were excited about in their downtown. And there were some, let's be honest, there were some old people on the Zoom who were learning and getting more and more comfortable with being online. So I really encourage you all to push yourselves, to try this, because it is so, it's so necessary right now, but it doesn't replace our in-person experiences. I will share that for me personally, when thinking about what work I do in my own home, because I serve a large region, so I do a lot of work online and used to do a lot of travel. But here in my neighborhood, we're having concerts, you know, safely. So part of what I feel like digging into doing is how can we model good in between stuff. So we had a concert in our park where we painted 12-foot circles and family groups could be together, and we had 75 people come to a rock and roll show where we paid the musicians. It was low risk, it didn't cost a lot. And those social connections that we can help model doing safely then allow us to dig in deeper when we're online. Because one thing that's awesome about being online is you can do work without a dang mask on. So you can actually see each other, you can talk more easily. There are lots of tools that you can use. If you go back to our session on the event site feed, there are 2 brand new Artist Thrive Zoom tips updates. And go get those, download them. Of course, Artist Thrive will be pushing them out, but Heather and I just keep adding more and more and more. It was yesterday that I found the new mustache app, you know, that's within Zoom, because they aren't telling you what that stuff is that's underneath the hood. So we're almost at time, aren't we? Jennifer, have you been watching the chat enough to say whether there's some things that we could address right now?
Well,
And
I
Kate
think
has had her hand up for a long time.
Okay, yeah, Kate, do you want to either unmute yourself or go ahead and put it in the chat?
Kate disappeared.
Okay. Well, we've had a lot of like great comments about you know, using breakout rooms and how you intend on using Zoom and what you're going to provide. So does anyone have any specific questions in the remaining 13 minutes that they're just dying to ask Beth? And you can chat them, or you can raise your hand and then unmute yourself.
Oh, good. I solved everyone's problems. I love when I do that. No, one thing I was going to say, I don't think it's 13 minutes. I think it's 2.
It's 2.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're down to the wire.
One thing I will say is please feel free to reach out to me anytime. This is what I feel like is part of my new mission. No, haven't done anything on Twitch myself. Has anyone else? No one is saying yes about Twitch.
Samuel is. He just raised his hand.
Okay, tell us, what did you do?
Not for any official programming, just for entertainment.
Which there is a lot of that there. I had not ever heard of Twitch until the pandemic, but in my desire to learn, that, you know, you just got to learn all this stuff. There's all this stuff that people are using, particularly that kids and adolescent and 20-somethings are using, that I certainly didn't have a clue about, that is wonderful and inspiring to see. The platforms are good. So I encourage you to keep up the work, but please feel free to reach out to me at the AIR Institute if you have further questions. As I was trying to say a minute ago, this is part of our new mission, is like how we can help folks do that. So happy to help in whatever way we can. But
Okay, someone's looking for the address of the exhibition you mentioned, and I think they're referring to the Tamarack.
TamarakFoundation.org. I just put it in the chat. I'm pretty sure that's exactly right. But Google Tamarack Foundation if you don't find that. I'm sorry, you're right about old people. I refer to that. I apologize for that. I think it's because of my hair that I feel like I can say that, but I won't use it again. Thank you for the reminder. All right. Awesome. Thanks y'all so much. Have a great rest of your day. And if I see any of you later, I'll have even more weird tips in the 30-minute how to take a break from Zoom fatigue.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much.